all in all, it wasn't a terrible week for real estate in the Portland metro area. I'm Ron Milligan with RE/MAX Select here in Portland's Pearl District. And of course, what I have for you are our weekly market statistics for the Portland metro area. That includes the metro area on the south side of the border and all of Southwest Washington as well. So the numbers that we're looking at are the weekly numbers, and they're not that bad. I mean, I was expecting to see worse. So let's start with our usual active number of listings. Our supply of active listings for buyers to purchase did go up by about 200 versus the previous week, which is a significant jump, but not as much as we've been seeing in the past. It's actually kind of a tempered number from what we've been seeing the past few weeks. It is a rise, but when I compare that number to where we were last year at this time, we are 59.9% higher than we were last year at this time, which means that buyers have 59.9% more listings to choose from this year than they did during roughly the same time last year. But those of you who are paying attention closely will see that the number actually went down. So last week that number was 61%. We're down to basically 60%. And the reason for that compression of the difference between last year and this year is that the number of active listings last year also increased by about 200 or so. So that's something that starts to happen this time of year. In a normal year in Portland, we start to our number of transactions starts to wane in during the summer, July and August. Then we get kind of a nice bump of business after kids go to school in September. And so we're seeing that right now. It happened last year, it's happening this year. It's starting to feel more like a normal thing. So when we look at buyer activity, the buyer activity stayed pretty much the same as it was the previous week. Only a slight change there, 749 to 740. And if we look back, this number is in line with where we've been for the past 6 weeks or so. We had higher numbers before that, but we should see higher numbers in our early spring. Those are our heaviest months. So we just watch this number and make sure that it's continuing, because if new listings start to wane, and we did see fewer new listings this week than we saw the previous week, and buyer demand stays steady, this is going to start to feel more like a normal year as we head into the fall and the winter. Not a lot of new listings, and some pretty, I'm hoping pretty decent buyer demand through the summer, as some folks realize that maybe the sky isn't in fact falling, and this is a great opportunity to get a home without having to bid way over the asking price and to bring in an extra $20, $30, $40, $50,000 to make up the difference between the appraised value and the purchase price, and give up all of your contingencies for inspections on the purchase. You may have a higher interest rate, but you're going to be paying a lot less. But as normal as this might feel, it is a lot less than we saw last year. And of course, again, last year was a crazy year. It was a white hot year, probably the strongest seller's advantage market, and an incredibly high amount of buyer activity due to really, really low interest rates. So the number of new transactions last year was 1,049 versus the 740 that we had this year. The number of closings was pretty low, 577 versus the previous week, 646. This number is low mainly because of what I think was going on about a month before, because this represents properties that went under contract about a month ago. About a month ago, interest rates were, kicking around 6%. Right now, rates, I think, are just dipped below 5%. Of course, the Fed is meeting today, and I'm getting all sorts of stories, or all sorts of indicators of where rates are going to go, residential rates are going to go, as the Fed increases the Fed funds rate by another 3/4 of a point this week, which is what they've been promising. I'm hearing folks saying actually rates are going down right now, and others saying, hey, get ready for that typical shock to run through the residential mortgage market with rates going up, and then probably, hopefully, knock on wood, reducing, day by day, week by week, until we get to where we are again. After the highs of June, we're now down to looks like less than 5% for the 30-year fixed on good credit. So kind of a suppressed number of transactions, 577. In my notes from last year, I saw 793 at the same time, roughly the same time last year. So the number of homes that did price reductions was pretty much the same last week to this week. Last week was 835, this week is 834. And of those, 785 were still under contract and 49 did go pending after that price reduction. So that was price reductions the last 7 days. I did do another check just to see how many of those were more serious price reductions. 518 of them were $15,000 or more. You know, as we often say, especially given, you know, a certain price point, you know, a $10,000 price reduction isn't super effective. Because a lot of times $10,000 isn't your problem. It's not an amount that's keeping a buyer from writing an offer. Usually need to go a little bit more than that at higher price points. So of those 518, about 38 of them went under contract. So the lion's share of those that went under contract were for larger price reductions. The number of days on market did go up. We're up to 18 versus last year 16, and the median went up another day to 8. Last year at this time it was 5. And what that means is half the homes sell in less than 8 days and the other half of the homes sell in more than 8 days. Average sale price came in at $625,500 versus last year $577,397. That's a difference of 8.3%. So for that week, the number of the homes that sold on average 8.3% higher than they did last year at the same time. Previous week that was 8.1. The week before that was 9.9. So it's kind of starting to look like our new normal. And by the time we hit the end of the year and we average the entirety of the year, 2022 versus 2021, I'm suspecting that we'll maybe land around 7% plus or minus for our year-over-year increase in the average sale price. Median came in at 7.9% higher this year versus last year. Last week it was 10.5. The week before that it was 11.7. On average, sellers got 99.58% of their original asking price. So they listed their property, maybe did a price reduction, maybe did 2. That amount that they ended up selling for was on average 99.58% of that original asking price. Last year that number was 103.08, so on average sellers got 3.08% above their original asking price when they finally sold. So what do we see going forward? Here's what I'm thinking is going to happen. I'm thinking that we're going to see the number of new listings start to wane. I'm hoping that buyer demand is going to stay pretty steady and that we'll just start chipping away at that inventory as we go through the summer and then get into the fall and winter. Fall and winter, we usually don't see a lot of new listings. Folks generally don't sell during that time, but we do see buyers still interested in purchasing. And our inventory, both inventory in months and just the overall active listing count tends to decline as we go through winter. So we'll see if that happens. Of course, I'll be here week after week letting you know. And if you like this content, feel free to subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell button if you'd like to be informed when we've got new content out. And then if there's someone that you know that might find this information helpful, feel free to share this video with them. I would love that. And then if you've got any thoughts or information that you've come across that you might think is interesting or helpful or informative, please feel free to throw the information down below. I do read all of the comments and I would love to hear from you. All right, we'll see you next week.